Hello everybody, I'm Zay. I'm a character designer and illustrator, and I'm here to host a panel to talk about how I can draw quickly. So yeah, hope you're all having a lovely morning. I know that some people are kind of groggy at this time, but yeah, I think this should be a pretty good time. And of course I had to do the vendor scene, because of course. Hello. Swap this over to the art scene proper. So let me kind of start this thing off. We're going to dive pretty much right into the panel. So I hope everyone is properly ready. I have Shark is in the house. Hello. So I'm going to kind of start this all off. I'm not an expert at this stuff, right? I'm just someone who has a lot of practice with drawing quickly, figure studies, gesture drawings. We're going to go over what that means later on. But none of what I'm going to be showing here today should be taken as the end-all be-all how it works, right? Like, you don't step away of this saying, well, Zay did it that way, that means that's the way it's done. There are a dozen different ways to develop speed in your art, or just a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. This is just kind of what I have worked out, what I've liked, and this is what I like to talk about and how I like to teach it. So this is something that I have talked about in the past. People have actually asked me how I draw quickly, but hopefully that having a proper panel and recorded stream and things will actually help that out in the future. So along with this, you don't need a pen and paper to follow along this stream, to follow along this panel. This is more so a thing to go back over later on and with like a note and just kind of like follow along, things like that. You obviously can take notes. You can try to draw along, but I would much prefer you kind of like look in on what we're doing and how we're doing it so that you can kind of it just absorb that as it happens. I'm going to be going over a lot of different notes, a lot of things constantly, and going to put the teacher hat on, I suppose, and say like, I don't want you distracted in your notebooks when we're going over an important thing. Of course, it's going to be recorded, so you can go back over and look at it later on. For people who are well-versed artists, you're probably going to find some new stuff because there's, like I said, 1,000 ways of doing this. For new artists who are just kind of not understanding what we're talking about at all, well, you're going to get some good advice. You're going to get some cool things to start with. And I'm going to give you a lot of resources to learn on your own. That's going to be a big part of this. I don't want you to just follow along and copy what I'm doing. I'm going to go over what I do, how I do, and why I do it. So you have that understanding so you can learn yourself. To me, that is much, much more important. So let's kind of get started in this in some way, right? So what is like a gesture drawing? What is a figure? Things like that. Well, the core idea of it is, what if you're like, I don't know, you're sitting at a coffee shop, right? It's early morning. I'm certain a lot of you really understand what that feels like right now. But you're sitting in a coffee shop, you got your drink, you just have like a piece of paper in front of you. You're just kind of like doodling and such. And then like someone walks in, they're like all disheveled. They just roll out of bed. They're in a rush to get somewhere. They're trying to get their drink so they can leave, so they can like, that'll be their excuse for breakfast, stuff like that. And so you end up like, and you see this person, you just go like, that actually, I could really imagine one of my characters doing that. So while they're just like idly in line, they're just standing here, it's just looking all like awkward and trying to like, rush along the line. They got like this bag on the side, things like this. And you're just like, oh, that bag looks really cool. Like, all right, I really like the way that their shirt is cut. Yeah, it's cut like right up here, things like this. Their hair is like all kind of disheveled and in a mess and over to the side. Like, oh, that's really cool. All right. Yeah, I can kind of fix this. And then they walk ahead and you just go like, dang it. I didn't get to draw out the whole thing. Well, I have a pose. And then they kind of like walk ahead and they just like, they walk ahead, they order their thing. They're trying to like shuffle through this stuff. They didn't prepare the money for the order and things like that. So they're just like kind of like leaning over, just kind of rattling through this bag. They're kind of, doing this whole thing. They're really, really upset at themselves for not being ready. The bag is open, things like this. So, you're kind of like putting this down. You're just like, all right. Maybe I can do something with this. And then they get the wallet out, they pay, and they leave. And you're just like, but you have the pose. So the core idea of a gesture drawing, the core idea of it is you try to get something down as fast as possible, but you try to get it down the stuff that's going to leave. A person's outfit doesn't really change between 30 seconds, but the pose does. You're going to see them like shuffling with their wallet. They're going to be idly looking at their phone. They're going to be reaching for a coffee cup, just using this coffee shop example. So what you're trying to do is you're just trying to get this. This is literally the core of what you need to draw a good pose. Draw like any pose. So let's break this down. This is literally done in 4 shapes. I know a lot of artists are just hearing, cool, we're doing shape stuffs. Yeah, I know cylinders. I know spheres. I know this stuff. Or for new artists, it's like, I'm sick of hearing that stuff. All right, stick with me. It's really simple. Trust me. So a body can be broken down into 4 shapes. A pose can be broken down into 4 shapes. A circle, and I like putting a little plus on it just for where they're looking, because you can have them looking to the side, have them looking up, have them looking away from you, and you can put just like little lines there. And all the stuff I'm going to be showing is doable traditionally and digitally, just saying. So you have that. You have the spine, which is just a single line, a square for the chest, a triangle for the hips. Strictly speaking, you're not going to need the limbs. It helps though. It really, really helps. So let's kind of figure out what we can do with the limbs a little bit here. So, to go back to kind of this pose that I have over here, I'm going to slightly adjust where I have the hips going, slightly adjust the box for the chest. That's about the same. It's close enough. So with this leg being a little bit higher, this hip being a little bit higher, that's going to be the leg with all the weight on it. And this one kind of just goes off to the side, or it kind of folds back a little bit, or it's the one that's just idly standing onto the ground, things like this. The arms can really do whatever the heck they want. Like, you can stand completely static. Let's do full screen for this. You can just do this, and it really doesn't change much with the body. But if it's a pose that you're looking at, you can really kind of understand where everything is supposed to be going. This is actually one of my favorite things about figure drawing. I actually really, really, really love figure drawing. I love studies like this, all of this stuff. And we're doing full cam for just a second here. This is important, trust me. But everything is in relation to each other. Yeah, we're going to talk anatomy stuff. So remember, this is something that should be watched back later for more detail. But for anyone who's like standing up or just around right now, just humor me for a second. Just kind of like measure out how big your head is, top of your head, not including my headphones, down to your chin, and get about that height, and do like 2 down. That should end right about where your belly button is, like almost dead on. Your body works in a lot of ratios like that. You rest your arm to your side. Right where your elbow is should be right where your belly button lines up. Everything likes to line up with the belly button. Your body works in a lot of ratios like that. And once you start to spot them, you start to figure those things out, you can actually do a lot more information with less stuff given to you. So that's how you can say, have just, these 4 elements, the chest, spine, hips, and head, and you can still figure out where the legs go. You can still figure out where the arms should go or what they should be doing. Everything like that. But this is just like a few of these things, right? A few of these things. How digigrade legs affect this process? That's actually a fantastic question, and actually something we can get to with the next part here. Trust me, like it actually works really, really well. So I have a bunch of poses saved to my computer to work on just for fun. Like I pull it up and hit random a dozen times and say, we're drawing that one right now. And I'll set a timer for 30 seconds and we'll just draw. So before I kind of dive in with this, right? I'm going to talk a little bit, just reeling it way, way, way back to when I was learning this stuff. So I went to college for illustration. I went there for I did 2 years and a year and a half. And then I left because I learned what I wanted to know. And I left because college is expensive. And of those 2 years I was there, 4 days a week I went in for an hour and a half or more of figure drawing. And what they had us do was they told us to go pick up the cheapest paper. When I say cheapest paper, you immediately think like printer paper. We're talking cheaper. Way cheaper. We picked up newsprint. Just without any ink on it. You can go to art stores and get newsprint that in like a ream of 150 of these things. It weighs like 20 pounds for like $20. Stupidly cheap paper. Not usable for anything though. And then they had us pick up what's called China markers, which are wax crayon markers that, again, you can pick up a handful of these things for like $6 at an art store. If anyone's ever been through an art store, expensive. And the reason why they had you get the cheapest stuff and the most amount of stuff is because they had you draw a lot. Gesture drawing and figure drawing, generally you aim for like 30 seconds to a minute to draw the pose out. You saw what I was doing earlier up here. Like 30 seconds to a minute seems like a generous amount, seeing what I ended up doing with this. So they had us standing there, and this is where I got a standing stance for everything, and had you draw with your fully outstretched arm because they didn't want you to do precision. Because precision is the death of making this stuff work. Precision comes later. We're just trying to get something down. For all you artists out there who shrimp over the details and like, you bend over your desk and everything, just set the thing down on the table, step back a little bit, and just draw while completely normally seated when you're trying to learn this process, because that makes you loosen up so much more. Like, if you end up liking standing stance and stuff like that, your shoulder is going to hate you because that is a full workout. Getting used to it again hurt. So, but I just kind of wanted to share that of just like, these things are not made to be good. Any pretense of these things looking good, drop it now. Yeah, that is a whole long thing, but I want to hit home how much we were taught. Not supposed to be good. Get it done. Move to the next thing. You're supposed to get a body down. Why don't you have a body down? You have 30 seconds. Come on, dude, get a body down. I actually really like my classes. So let's figure out how to draw this pose. So we have a head. Very simple, very straightforward. Kind of made it look from the wrong side slightly. Whatever, we just keep going on. We have a torso. If I don't draw it completely in the wrong spot, this is what I get for looking to the side as I'm supposed to be drawing. We have the chest, which has a little bit of an angle at the top. And we have the hips, which have a little bit of angle like that. Now, what can we do with just this? Let me get rid of this for just a second. What can we figure out with just this information? Now, we still had that pose up for a good chunk of time. I wasn't paying any attention. I don't know about you, but I can barely remember that thing at this point. What can we figure out? Well, like I said, the body likes to work in ratios. It likes to make sense. Things don't really compress very well in the human body. So with that, we notice that the hip is really high right here compared to the other side. So that means that all the weight is on this foot, or at least most of the weight is on this foot. So what's this foot doing? Well, it could be out here. It could be kind of like in here being a little bit awkward or something. This foot has a lot less of the weight to it, but it still probably has some weight to it. So let's maybe do something like that. Now, even without the chest here, we could actually figure out more. Because, like I said, the body likes to work in ratios. So the spine has a bit of a curve to it. You know, it does something like this, right? That's the normal spine. The spine is all bendy. Your hips and your chest are not. Very much so. If you had a bendy set of hips, you would be having some problems. So the way that your body's able to compensate for being able to like flex around and do all this weird stuff is that, you know, it just kind of keeps these parts locked in place in relation to the spine. Again, for anyone who really knows anatomy stuff is probably gonna be really upset at me for saying these things. We're talking about art. We can fudge some stuffs. So because this bends like this bends like this, we know that the chest has to be angled like this. The shoulders have to be angled like this, which is always counter to the hips. That is something I draw a lot. For anyone who actually sees some of the artwork I have above me, you're going to see a lot of like the hips are opposite of the chest because it's just fun to draw. It's a thing that makes perfect sense. And when you put it down, it's like, yeah, that's how that looks. And just to kind of prove that, this entire time, I've been shuffling my weight around between my legs. You might have seen me moving around, but you might not have actually noticed that that it's been weird. Like I've been actually actively, this isn't just me being like, you know, awkward jittery. I've been actually actively trying to shuffle around. And even though I'm standing like this, you can tell that all my weight is on one foot. In fact, I could even be a bit more dramatic about it right here, but I'm not going to. It's just a natural way we stand. Hello, y'all. So we know that this arm has to be lower and this arm has to be higher. I say it's just that simple. I did spend a lot of time explaining why it's just this simple, but it's just this simple. So to kind of like review this, we can make this a bit more dramatic. Just this, whatever. In fact, just have to be opposite, allow you to be able to say the weight is on one foot. Yes. When you're standing idly, basically things like to stay level. There is a stipulation to this, which we will be getting to later, don't worry. But pretty much, if everything is kind of like flat and level, your weight is pretty much evenly distributed. If you have everything onto one foot, that means that your hip has to be raised. And if a hip has to be raised, it's very, very likely that your shoulders are doing the opposite for your spine to compensate. Like I'm leaning over to stay in the camera. If I wasn't, my shoulders actually do compensate a little bit for where my hips are. It's only for like really dramatic poses do you see a lot of really dramatic changes. But in essence, if the like hip line is one way, the shoulder line is probably going to be the other. And let's actually confirm this. So with just this one I drew, let's just try this one out. And now's the time we swap over to red. That's pretty accurate. I actually completely forgot that the arm was on the hip there. I was just going for a bit of sass. I'm actually really proud that worked. So you asked about digitigrade leg. So again, people who aren't super familiar with art terms, especially furry art terms, this is one I see a lot. Digitigrade is, say, you know, you have your hips here. Digitigrade is when you are on your toes. You're on your digits, right? You're on the digits of your toes. Plantigrade is when you have like a more normal human-ish foot and it's just flat. So what happens when you need to do the other one? It's kind of the same concept when you put your left foot forward and put your right arm forward. Yep. Yeah, everything just likes to work in backwards and opposites. So for, you know, digitigrade feet, it's just that's just your foot. Like that's just your foot. Like it's a really weird thing to say, but you just, where's your ankle? All right, add that much. That's where your toes are. Like for heels, that actually helps out a lot with trying to understand this stuff, because that's kind of what they're doing. Yeah, the weight's still on the whole bottom of the foot with the way the heels work, but it's not too far off. And this is like a front pose. What do we do about a side pose, right? Zay, come on, let's figure out this stuff. So with the side pose, whoop, if I do the spine, the correct orientation, the only thing to really keep in mind when it comes to digitigrade versus plantigrade is, well, I mean, literally just where the toes are, right? But have this one up, have this one down. So we have this foot here, which is the one that's closer to us. This one in the back. See this one? I need to move this front of the head a little bit more forwards, which is fine. If I was doing this traditionally, I would be doodling next to this with everything. Again, these are not made to be perfect, but I'm trying to clean up a little bit, just at least what I do. It makes a little bit more sense. But the only thing to really keep in mind with digigrade versus plantigrade is where the center of mass is and where the weight is. When it comes to where all you're standing, where all the weight is for everything, it's really where the center of your gravity is. So say you have this imaginary orb in the middle of your body where all your mass is. Wherever that is above the ground is the center of mass, and that should be about in between the feet. Unless you're leaning on one foot, then it moves over. This one is very, very far over here to this foot, so they're leaning on this foot a lot more. When you have feet like this, where the feet are touching the ground is what you consider. Oftentimes I see people draw, digigrade toes, and they will basically draw them as though like the center of mass was back here, right? They're more looking for the leg rather than where the toes are. That's where you're standing, and that's how that works. You can naturally do this yourself pretty easily. Again, plantigrade or digigrade is just standing on your toes. You can emulate a lot of this just by actually walking around on your toes for a while if you have a okay sense of balance. People saying that, like, yeah, people in chat here, you say you have like whole binders of cheap paper and a couple art books, always keeping your backpack and composition paper, all that jazz. That stuff is perfect for this. Genuinely perfect for this. And there's even a site resource that I use for generating a lot of these things. We'll be going over that one soon because that is a treat. I'm going to talk about that at the end though. So, all right. We've done a lot with this body here, right? This body. And if there's any other questions about like furry anatomy versus like human anatomy, because a lot of this does focus on human anatomy, just minor tweaks to make it furry anatomy. Again, you can see, was that seriously the same one I had the last time in post? Actually, that's a great example of digigrade toes, like digigrade feet. Just saying. But let's work on another body. So this one, right? This pose, clearly there's a lot of weight on this foot, not a lot of weight on this foot, but you see that the hips kind of don't line up with the shoulders. Come on, you're lying to me. You did all of this work. You spent like 20 minutes just talking about how this works, and then you show me a thing that literally breaks that. I did not break this. I am telling you that this thing is very finicky sometimes. Center of gravity, where you're standing and where your feet are in relation to where your center of gravity is. Center of gravity is like right around here. At best, there's weight on this foot, but that's still really close to both. Sassy hips, right? Sassy hips. I love it. I love this pose. I genuinely adore this pose, and I really want to do a piece with this at some point in the future. I have a lot of stuff in this folder of mine. Like, it took me a long time to filter what I'm going to be using for this panel. But it's easy to look at this and say, like, well, the hips are like this. The hips are like this. Chest is like this. But one thing that you may notice over here, where the knees are. So your bones in your legs don't compress. I said that earlier. That's just why, this pushes the hip up, all that jazz. But if this foot is pushing the hip up and this one is down, that means the knees have to be lower. It's a logical thing, right? This bone, not going to be compressed just because your foot's flailing outwards. That would make you a squid or something. Certain some of you are, but we're talking about people with bones here. Check your bone privilege. You notice their knees are actually about the same level. Yeah, there might be some discrepancy with the way the cameras took the photo, something with the lighting, any number of things, but the knees are actually pretty level here, which means that the weight should be actually about the same between them. And actually, if you were to kind of emulate this pose, it's really easy to kind of picture how that works. Let's just, it's really picture easy how that works and how you're able to get that pose going while keeping your weight between both your legs. You can emulate that really easily. So this actually has pretty much even hips. And if it's even hips, shoulders have to be about even. Which, as I alluded to earlier, when you can flail your limbs everywhere and it doesn't matter, you can have your arm picked up and that's not changing where your everything is. Like, if anything, it might slightly change the position of your spine, which might slightly... It's really pictured easy. Absolutely. But yeah, it might change the position of your spine slightly. It might change a little bit of this, but like, it needs to be a certain amount. Zay Sassy Hips Czar. Yeah, they don't call me Bazar for nothing. So now we can kind of figure out what we're going to do here. Now, you know, let's actually adjust this for digitigrade legs. So I like to put just a little bit of a bump in the knee for my plantigrade. No, digitigrade. I said I right. I've been talking a lot. Just because that helps me to figure these things out. Knees are about the same. Ankles, maybe not so important. But because we have a little bit more weight on this one, maybe, I did opt to put this ankle a little bit lower. Remember, that's just their ankle. You can always imagine this stuff by just standing on your tippy toes and saying like, all right, yeah, no, that's my ankle. That's how that works. It's just, you know, really dramatic for some of that. Of course, I point to one that doesn't have feet. It was on point every other time. And, you know, arm can just do this. I'm drawing right on top of this, but let's just move that off to the side and let's just draw next to it. We already know so much with this. And I might, you know, make it a little more exaggerated just for the sakes of this. But like, just that easy. So, you know, let's find a challenge. This is probably a pose that if a lot of people were learning how to draw, we look at it and go, I'm out. I ain't doing that. Let's break it down. We have a head, which looks this way. The spine, which bends somewhere like that. Chest, which maybe does something along these lines. Or, actually, it looks like they might be a little bit more level, looking at that again. Then we have hips. A leg that sticks out. A leg that sticks down. Goes out a little bit. This one, poke out like that. Your knee right around there-ish. In this hand, we're not going to bother too much with perspective. That is CozyCon 2025 stuff is when I'm going to be talking about perspective in a panel. Good gosh. On God, right? It's like offering to dance as well. I could totally picture this being something that people here might love to draw. It's like, yes, I would love to go dancing, or an on guard, or just any number of things. I mean, heck, Lady Demotress, she's like, all right, stabby fingers, let's go. I think it's Demotress. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that. I'm going to be totally honest. Even though I've heard it said a million times. So, let's compare how I did. All right. That's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. Such violence. Right? We're talking about dancing, and then suddenly it's stabby fingers. Like, Mythics, come on. Kind of wish I had the stream chat here. I wish I thought of that ahead of time. That would have been great to have the CozyCon stream chat just on stream. So yeah, this, pretty good, pretty accurate pose. As you dance, I suppose no matter what power would make you refuse. That is the type of pose where once you join the dance, you're going to be picked up at some point over their head. They're like, we'll challenge you to a duel. And here's what I love. Everyone, like, y'all are going through so many different options of what this pose could mean. Like, I just replicated it in, like, you know, 10 to 30 seconds. I took a little bit of time to replicate it pretty accurately. Have fun. Draw it yourself. Like, this can be turned to 12.5 different things. So, I just got a handful more here. The Power Rangers fight scenes were all just dances. Yep. Super choreographed. Love y'all. Love y'all having a good time here. So, while I'm kind of putting these things down, I just want to iterate again. I've been doing this for a long time. Now, while I'm able to do stuffs like this, you know, seemingly really fast and really well, a large part of it is just because I actively spent a lot of time practicing this. I wanted to go really, really fast with my art. And now I'm trying to spend a bit more time slowing down. But these are some basic tools for how to do it yourself. Now, I said earlier that I, spent, what was it, a year and a half, 4 days a week, doing 3 to 6 hours of art just to like kind of do figure study stuffs. I did not spend that time like purely doing this. I guess purely doing this, yes. All that time wasn't spent to get exactly where I am. I got like most of this done in like 2 months at most, at absolute most. I was a bit slow. So these are things that are actually really easy to do yourself and just to kind of get some practice down on how to do a pose or two, or how to sit at a coffee shop and draw a person. And I bring up the coffee shop. I bring up the coffee shop example all the time, mostly because, everyone understands it. But also because I knew someone who would go through a full sketchbook in a month, like a 50-page sketchbook in a month. This dude, almost every single morning, would go to a coffee shop in a big city. We lived in Chicago at the time. And he would go to a coffee shop every single morning and sit down, get a coffee, and draw the people around him. And he would talk about, people are sometimes there for a minute. Literally a minute. And he's like, I'm just going to draw these people. And I'd go through his sketchbook, and it was just like poses. And it's just like headshots. And they were like super well defined. I'm like, how are you doing this? And he goes like, I'm just drawing a lot. Like he would have full line work, like detailed versions of everything figured out. I'm just like, holy crap. Yeah, people who go through sketchbooks really, really fast are just gods. And I always think about that and just going like, yeah, that's everyday dedication to get to do something like that. But it's something that he just enjoyed. Like, he didn't do that because he's like, oh no, I want to get really fast at drawing. He's just like, oh, it's just fun. I just like people watching. I decided to draw them too. Martial arts teacher kept complete. That's great. Only more artists with the ambition to complete past art commissions like do with their sketchbook. I can't say that for myself. I'm pretty fast on the draw with a lot of these things. So we're going to look at this one with a little bit of different light. So I brought up 2 different things we're going to be talking about at the beginning of the stream. Figure drawing and gesture drawing. Figure drawing is what we've done so far, where you're drawing the figure out. You break it down, you break it into individual parts, and you try to like just draw them in a realistic way. Gesture drawing is a little bit the opposite. A little bit the opposite. Maybe a straighter line here. I have a core idea of that down. Oh man, I want to draw a figure skater. Baseball batter. A dancer. Whoop. If I can draw this right. Guy with his mug at his tablet. Really big old bean chair. Gesture drawing is basically where you try to make it as organic and basic as possible. Where do organs live? Where do organs live? Gesture drawing. Wiggle lines of freedom. A gesture drawing is as core basic as you can get with these studies. Gandhi has it right. Yeah, it's just as basic as you can get with these studies. When the core idea of a figure drawing is to get a basic pose down so you can like actually, draw it out later, all the details of them later on, a gesture drawing is to say, I like the energy of that. Let's get the energy of that and move that forwards. So yeah, I went to a dancing show and I just drew out a bunch of what they were doing, but they were moving so quickly I couldn't do what I want. I couldn't like get an idea down. Well, like this. If you want, going out with the full arm actually helps out a lot. For gesture things, you don't really want to be working from the wrist. You want to be working with the whole arm because that lets you be so dramatic with these things. None of these are supposed to be final end pieces. These are supposed to be things that you just kind of make and then they become something that turns into a final piece through a couple of iterations. Maybe you really liked this pose, but this is too small to use. So what do? Well, you drew it once. You can draw it again. Maybe you can adjust the hip placement a little bit so it works a bit better. Maybe, the line of action could be a bit more dramatic. You want to pull it back here, pull this leg out here. And obviously you want to add in a tail or something like that. Maybe you want to account for the weight of the tail with the balancing of them. Like, everyone was talking a lot about this pose. Here it is. Put a weapon in their hand on guard. Put them in incredibly fancy ballerina dress wear and have them offering a dance. Maybe not ballerina, but you get the idea. Gesture drawing allows you a lot of freedom to maybe add on a little bit more once you get home from the show. Sorry, I'm loving reading the chat that y'all are having. So earlier on, I was talking about that there's a service that I use. I didn't get a lot of these images from this service, but there's a website called Line of Action. And it seems like a really, really good one. I can't say seems like. It is what I used for a lot of figure study stuffs when I don't have a live model to work from. If you find a live model session like around, like sometimes they ask for like 10 or 20 bucks at entrance, obviously if it's running right now with current conditions, but it's 100% worth going like once a week, once every other week or something. Plus it supports them actually being able to afford a live model. Having a live model is very expensive. It's very difficult to do that stuff. But barring all of that, there's a site called Line of Action. And what you can do is they just have a conglomerate of a lot of different photos. And you can organize it by male, female, clothed, unclothed, various discrepancies like that. Line of Action. Actually, I can throw that to my channel in the CozyCon Discord if that is okay after this panel is done. That way people can kind of go and check it out themselves. I kind of want to finish this stuff just so that I can do all these things. Hey, there you go. Line of Action. Perfect. Thank you so much. So if you were to use that site and you want to practice, do the hour-long class session. It's going to be mean to you. You are not going to like it very much unless you're used to being able to draw things really quite rapidly. But the hour-long class session is pretty much my gold standard because that site has hundreds of photos. And if you do the hour-long class session, it starts you off with like 30 seconds to draw the pose. And you go, all right, we're gonna draw the thing in 30 seconds. Sweet. So we're gonna have like the head, the chest, the hips, the body. Okay, we can start the limbs and out. Time's up. Okay, next one. All right, now I got the whole thing. So let's do the head. Let's do the spine shape. All right, now we got this. We got the chest. We got the all right, now we're getting both the limbs in. All right, we got the whole body in. All right, next one. Sweet. I know what I'm doing. And you do that one. So you do like 30 seconds, and then it does a minute. And you go, yes, I needed a minute. I really needed a minute to work on this. So now you have a full minute. You get to actually like put in the limbs. Maybe you get it in a little bit more detail. It starts looking a bit more like this or like this. You're trying to get more of the body in there, getting more mass. All right, another minute. Sweet. So you do another one like that. It's another pose. Maybe the next one is a really actiony one like this. So they're really in motion and everything. And they're just like, and you just get to add in all this cool stuff. And now you have 5 minutes. And you go, all right, cool, 5 minutes. I can be more detailed now. I can actually put that hand in. Like I can actually kind of figure out what's going on with that. That's some perspective going on. I can like get this like detail in the body. Okay, cool. Let's like get this chest and everything in. It's like, okay, cool. So now I'm trying to figure this out more. So you have more time to work on these things. And then it gives you 10 minutes. And you go, what am I gonna do with 10 minutes? I have 10 minutes? So now you have 10 minutes to draw a pose. And it's just like, I guess I'm gonna shade it too. So you have the lines down, you put down the figure, you put down the shape of it. And you know, unless like the hand held you up for like 5 minutes or something, which is fair. It's like, now you're looking at shading this thing too. And you're just like, oh my gosh, that's so much time to work on this. Then it gives you 30. And you sit there with 30 minutes to draw a pose. And you're just going, what did I do to deserve this? I already shaded the last one. Do I do like color? Do I put down like proper digital lines if I'm doing this digitally? Do I take out my other inking pen and go and like make it like traditionally done? What do I do? And by the time you're done with that hour-long session, you sit there with a 30-minute piece and you just go, how much did I do in 5 minutes? Wait, what? That was 30 seconds back there. Let me look at that again. And you just suddenly are like, wow, I actually did that in that much time. And you realize that you hated that you didn't have anything to do for the other 30 minutes, or for like the other 25 minutes of this last pose. And you're trying to add more in because you don't stop. Especially in a college setting, you paid to be there. You're going to keep drawing, dang it. And the goal with, you know, Line of Action or any other sites, if you find figure drawing sessions, live figure sessions, or figure study sessions on YouTube or on other sites, you don't want to stop. They're intending you to keep going, and that's part of the challenge. You just keep going. Storm, you say there's nothing in terms of how slow you draw. I mean, that's why you do the practice stuffs. So one student that we had in my classes, and I keep jumping back to classes, but that's because there's a lot of memorable stuff like this that happened. We had one student that wasn't there for art, not in the traditional sense. He was there for 3D art. But every single student that went into that school went in to do their own things, right? But every single one had to go through the same first year. Everyone had to go through illustration classes, anatomy studies, art history, and figure drawing. Every single person. And some of you might be hearing, why do you have to do figure study stuffs if he was doing 3D art, like 3D modeling and digital stuffs? Art is a web. When you learn one thing, you learn everything else as well. It helps out everything else. And that student, he went from like and I'm not exaggerating. He went from that, oh, sorry, I forgot the smiley, into stuff like this by the end of the year. This process is not like you start it and immediately you have really fast art. But by just occasionally sitting down and doing like an hour-long drawing session on there, or finding one of those sites that actually does the class mode where it starts really fast, then it slows down and gives you more time, those allow you to start getting that practice in. And you start to understand what's important to draw. Like, what do I not want to draw in this thing if I want to get this done in time? And then that carries over. And that knowledge gets locked away of like, all right, so what's the important stuff? And then you suddenly try doing like more of just the important stuff. And suddenly the really important stuff is the stuff that you get really good at. And then suddenly that stuff works really, really fast. And now you have time to put in the other limbs, but you have that good core of what you're trying to understand of the core thing. It's just like, it really, really allows you to like just speed up as an artist. Now, as was said there, there is something to be said about going slow. I've been trying to learn to slow down. I have a problem with that sometimes. I am impatient. I try too much to learn to go fast. But this is how I learned to get started with those things. When you're just starting out and you're so upset that something can take you 6+ hours to draw, I've been there. Here's the thing to at least speed up a part of it. Yeah, I didn't show how to do lines. I didn't show how to do like detailed anatomical studies of like rib cages and of like what the organs look like or how muscle forms group and things like that. But to get a pose down is like half the battle when it comes to a lot of illustration art. Oh, and Storm says, see, I do that. You have a little bit of natural shakiness. I do that, but it always comes out wrong the first like 50 times. That's where the problem lies. You keep going. This guy did not quit. And it was insanely cool to see him grow as an artist. If you're drawing stuffs and it's taking a really long time because the thing's not looking right, honestly, I would say jump into one of those class sessions first. Yeah, 30 seconds is not a long time. It is not, especially when you're learning this stuff. And you'll be annoyed that all you got was just like an eye or just an elbow. I don't know why one person drew elbows all day, but you'll be really annoyed at that type of stuff. However, once you kind of think of it in terms of breaking it down as much as you can, you know, getting just like these core parts or trying to figure that stuff out, that will actually let the other stuffs kind of work a lot smoother afterwards. Yeah, a lot of them aren't going to look good. You're not going to finish most of them when you're learning these things. But these are the tools that I use to get started with this stuff as well. Draw a box constantly. I've been doing here because of a ton of your shaky lines. Ooh, drew noses a lot. That seems fun. I knew someone who draws hands a lot. They're insane. They enjoy drawing hands. So what's another thing that we can kind of rattle about here? Well, maybe if I pull up another pose, because yep, I have another one. You know how many I have? I have one more from this. I just have stuff ready. Just kind of keep rambling if I need to. So, well, I'm kind of rambling still. I can kind of discuss this stuff. I do really like this pose because this is a really, really nice way to show that contrapposto hip thing while looking like the hips are totally normal. But the hips look flat, but that's because the spine goes in at an angle like this. For anyone who does, you know, only wants to draw furry stuffs, just continue it from the spine. That's not, you know, how everyone does it, obviously, but it makes sense for these type of things because both anatomically it would make sense that the tail continues from the spine, but also it makes sense from a like motion way of it working. It just kind of keeps rolling. So that's where kind of the tail might go. So what if we want to add in more mass to the body? Well, you just kind of like put things around on the outside. The chest has this up tick here, a down tick in the back. I know some artists that draw a oval for the chest and do triangles for the shoulders, just because that makes it feel like a lot more stuffs. Like it feels a lot more accurate to the things. It feels like a scapula, which is the big shovel bladed bone on your back. It's like some artists like to do that type of stuff a lot. We know that elbow is right around where the belly button should be. Arms kind of end around the middle of the leg. Legs don't make sense. And for people who frequent my streams and know the art that I make, there's a constant joke that I make my legs really, really long. And when maned wolves started becoming a thing, people actually message me. It's like, so when are you gonna make a maned wolf? But it's kind of just a general joke at this point that I draw my legs incredibly long and torso's really small. But I hope I've at least proven at some point in here that at least I can draw a proper body when want to. It's just more fun. But whenever I do these type of streams, I am always just kind of casually concerned, like, am I drawing the legs right? Am I lying to everyone? So I just went through and drew like all these contours. And a pose like this is really good because the entirely black outfit really, really highlights just the shape of stuffs. So we're drawing 30 years ago, keeping bogged down the wrong start. Oh, with poses, it takes you forever. You get back to these basics. Yep. I forget to do these a lot as well. There is actually a art school, like a one building art school nearby. It's like 30 minutes away, and they basically charge like $10 to do a once a week live figure session. Like they have a nude figure there, and you just basically pay $10, and that pays for the figure to be there for that week. And you sit down and just draw them for like 2 hours, 3 hours or something. And I need to get back in the habit of doing that, but then shenanigans happened. Kind of hard to get out of the house. Yeah, 30 years of art. It's a fantastic run so far. But yeah, I think I kind of covered all I want to do. Are there any questions? I know we're kind of nearing the end of the panel time, but I feel like I've answered things along the way, and I may have rambled a lot more than I originally intended. I actually planned on this not to take a full hour, just because these aren't supposed to be final. These are supposed to be things that you work on quickly and keep going, and trying to get more and more and more sketches done here. And at a certain point, it's just me drawing in front of everyone instead of me talking about how this stuff works. But if anyone has any questions with just kind of how the process is, what I've done, or anything like that, I'm free to answer. And even after the panel, I stream a lot. And I'm more than willing to answer any questions on art stuffs in my streams. Even I've actually sent my tablet tools to people to use in their own versions of Clip Studio Paint. Where do you get references? I get them from Google. I actually Google search like live figure drawings, things like that, and I keep diving into more and more related searches, and I just keep finding photos and I save them to my computer. I know that, you know, Google image search stuffs, generally you don't want to be using those for like finished stuffs, but if you're just doing it for practice, 100% okay. So look for, I just browse Google and I just find dozens of photos. Installing a sketch, maybe an hour and a half. I think this made you as wise man trying to actually look good. Yep, the sketch is a sketch. Are there any methods you gather for tackling the dreaded hands? That would be a whole nother hour-long panel, and I'm really not kidding. I have a weird quirk where I struggle still with hands when they're just like outsplayed like normal. But for some reason, when it comes to them being in like kind of dramatic poses, I feel like I tackle them a lot better. I need to figure out what's going on, why that's the case. This is a really bad hand. But whatever. The core idea, right? If it's in kind of a weirder pose for some reason, I can make it work better. I'm still learning that one. You're never not still learning as an artist. Hansapo, I need to steal your desire to draw hands. All right, it's mostly turned into puns at this point. Hand puns. Hand puns and Hansapo flexing on everyone, saying they love drawing hands. But I think that's about it for me. Let me actually throw this up to the vendor table because why not? It has my, oh wait, no, I thought I had my stream on here too. Well, it has a bunch of examples. I don't know. Hope you all had a lovely time here. Again, over in CozyCon, I have my own channel thing. I will be posting a link to the to line of action on there, so you guys can get in on that and try to practice that yourself. Do line of action on the 30-second ones. If you don't finish, you just do that. Yes, if you don't finish a thing doing line of action poses, you move on. That's just how it works. You accept that that one didn't quite turn out how you wanted to, and you remember what held you up. if you end up with just like, you know, just the hips or just like one leg, then you kind of think, all right, well, now I know that, now I know like that, like legs, they hold me up for a little bit, or maybe like the head held you up for a while. Next time you can kind of keep that in mind. But yep, see video session of this. So, I feel like, CozyCon, you do record the streams. I actually record locally as well. So if nothing else, I do have a recording, and I wouldn't mind being able to post this up after the con is all done myself. But we'll kind of see what ends up happening with that one. Again, I stream 5 days a week. 4 days are art, which you can come in and ask questions, and I'm more than willing to answer anything that I can, or just discuss and ramble. 1 day is just game stuffs, but we turn the game stuffs into an art stream once we're done with the game. So it's very art focused over on my streams, which I don't have on here, but it's just twitch.tv/Zazars. I host this on YouTube for sure. Yeah, I really would love to. So yeah, that's probably going to happen. I'll probably have a link for that at some point in the future. And that's about it. Yeah, after I'm done with this panel and I tear down everything, I will be relocating over to my own stream, where I actually am going to be working on various commission specials and stuff. But I do have to take a bit of a time to like chill out, relax before I go live my stuff, and also swap around a bunch of settings. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining me. You all have been absolutely lovely. Go enjoy CozyCon, enjoy the next panels, enjoy all the stuff that's going to be happening. Yeah, hope you all have a lovely day. Hope you all learned a lot. Where is my... There it is. My end card. All right. Goodbye.